There's a reason why some of the most gifted, awakened, and spiritually potent people on the planet feel more lost than the asleep. It's not because they're confused. It's because they're in between. They're not fully aligned with the angelic realms, where light, harmony, purity, and transcendence reign supreme. And they're not fully immersed in the demonic realms either, where chaos, domination, ego, and temptation rule like kings. They're stuck in the tension, the void between dimensions. And if you're listening to this, chances are that's exactly where you are. You're a dark chosen one, not chosen because you're perfect, not chosen because you're pure, but chosen because you were born with the capacity to hold both frequencies without being consumed by either. That is your gift, and that is also your curse. We must begin here. Most people think spiritual evolution is linear, that you're ascending from darkness into light, from ignorance to enlightenment. But the dark chosen ones don't follow that trajectory. We don't rise from the darkness, we are born from it. We don't reject the shadow, we embody it, transmute it, and command it. And yet, we are also drawn to the light, to the angelic codes of truth, love, and divine order. This creates a paradox. We are too raw for the angels, too conscious for the demons, and too awake to pretend we belong to either side entirely. So we become interdimensional wanderers. We sit in sacred temples and still feel the serpent's breath. We walk through the underworld and still carry the scent of heaven. And that is why we feel stuck, not because we're broken, but because we're bridges. Have you ever felt that unbearable tension in your chest? The feeling that you could melt into bliss or explode into rage at any moment. That's not dysfunction. That's dimensional pressure. You are carrying frequencies most people will never even sense. You hold codes from both the throne room and the pit. And the reason you feel like you can't move forward is because you've been told you have to choose. You've been told that light is good and dark is bad, that you have to purify yourself of your shadow, that the divine only flows through clarity. But what if that's a lie? What if your destiny isn't to escape the shadow but to master it? What if your soul contracted not only to awaken others but to confront the realms that even angels fear to enter? And what if feeling stuck is not a failure, but a sign that you're being asked to alchemize the impossible? This is why many dark chosen ones suffer from spiritual identity crisis. You try to fit into angelic spaces, but your intuition tells you it's too clean, too sterile, too disconnected from real pain. You try to explore shadow work, but your soul starts bleeding because the energy begins to consume you. You don't feel safe in either realm. And that's because your path is not to reside in either. Your path is to walk between, to become the vessel where heaven and hell meet and neither wins. You are not here to be good. You are here to be true. And that truth includes rage and reverence, chaos and clarity, seduction and sanctity. But here's the kicker. Until you stop trying to be one or the other, you will remain stuck. Because your soul is not asking you to become light, it's asking you to become whole. Let's go deeper. The angelic realm is order. It's structure. It's divine clarity. It's the realm of guidance, of healing, of unconditional love. It is beautiful, but it can also be sterile, detached, disembodied. It often fears the messiness of desire, of grief, of destruction. And if you live only in that realm, you become disembodied. You lose the root. You stop feeling. You become a floating idea of truth, but not a living embodiment of it. And that's why dark chosen ones eventually feel numb when they try to ascend too far. They start to disappear. Their voice trembles. Their power leaks. The angelic frequency is too clean for the fire they carry. And so they begin to dim, even as they chant mantras and wear white robes. Because they're not being spiritually lazy. They're being spiritually misplaced. On the other hand, the demonic realm is wild. It's desire, it's chaos, it's ego, it's seduction, it's rage. And it's not evil, it's primal. The demonic realm will show you how to access your rawest power. It will make you feel alive. It will make you feel like a god. And that's the danger. Because if you're not grounded in truth, the demonic realm will consume you. It will convince you that domination is sovereignty, that manipulation is leadership, that attention is love. And soon you'll be powerful but empty, magnetic but hollow. You'll have influence but no intimacy with your own soul. And that's why the dark chosen ones cannot stay there either. Because we're not here to be consumed by chaos, we're here to command it without becoming it. So we're stuck, or so it seems. But what if being stuck is not a trap but a womb? What if feeling the pull of both realms is not a sign of confusion but a sign of readiness? What if the reason you feel torn is because your soul is preparing to birth a new frequency, one that has never existed before? A frequency that doesn't reject the angelic or the demonic, but reconciles them. That's what it means to be a dark chosen one. You are not here to choose sides. You are here to collapse the illusion of separation. You are here to embody paradox, to be the sword and the prayer, the storm and the sanctuary, the question and the answer. That is not stuckness. That is sovereignty awakening through tension. So I ask you this, what if you stopped trying to ascend or descend and simply stood still in the tension? What if that ache in your chest isn't asking you to move but to become the space where opposites meet? What if your greatest power is not in picking a side, but in holding the frequency of both without collapsing into either? That's not weakness. That's mastery. And it's the mastery this world desperately needs. You are not broken. You are not confused. You are being forged. You are not meant to be understood. You are meant to transcend the categories others use to define themselves. You are a living paradox, a sacred contradiction, a divine disturbance in a system that demands you choose. But you won't, because you remember something deeper, something older, something truer than truth itself. The moment you stop trying to escape the tension and start listening to it, something ancient begins to awaken within you. It's not a voice, it's a current, a pulse, a deep knowing that says, "This is where I'm meant to be." The middle path has always been forbidden, not because it's wrong, but because it's uncontrollable. No religion owns it. No lineage can claim it. No teacher can fully define it. It defies spiritual dogma and destroys energetic hierarchy. Because it doesn't ascend or descend. It spirals. And in that spiral, the dark chosen ones become something terrifying and beautiful, unclassified. You are no longer a light worker. no longer a shadow priest. You become a frequency bridge, a breathing paradox that dissolves illusion by refusing to choose sides. This path is not taught, it's remembered. And the remembering doesn't happen in books or temples. It happens in the fire of contradiction. It happens when you're holding sacred space for others, but secretly want to scream. When you're channeling angelic light, but your body aches with the weight of your trauma. When you're leading a ritual, but your soul is whispering, "This isn't the full truth." That's when the ancient memory stirs. The memory that says, you were never meant to be clean. You were meant to be whole. And wholeness includes the scream, includes the ache, includes the shadow that still wants to seduce and destroy. The middle path says, bring it all, not to justify it, not to indulge it, but to transmute it through presence. But here's the catch. The middle path is excruciating at first, because you'll be rejected by both sides. The light beings will say you're too intense, too raw, too chaotic. The dark beings will say you're too soft, too naive, too idealistic. You won't belong anywhere, and that's exactly the point. Because your soul didn't come here to belong. It came here to birth something that's never existed before. Belonging is a frequency of the past. Creation is a frequency of the now. So when you feel that dissonance, when you feel like no one gets you, like no community fully sees you, that's your initiation. You're not lost. You're becoming original. And originality requires isolation, not as punishment, but as preparation. Because the world cannot receive a new frequency until someone is brave enough to embody it first. We must understand something fundamental. The current spiritual systems are outdated. They're still based on duality. Light vs. dark, good vs. evil, ascension vs. descent. But the dark chosen ones are here to introduce a third frequency, the integrated field. This field doesn't reject polarity. It holds it in tension until it dissolves into a higher octave. It's not about balance. It's about fusion. And when you start living from this field, you begin to see through the illusions that others are still trapped in. You realize that most high vibration teachings are just avoidance in disguise. You realize that most shadow work is just ego ritualized. You see through the masks, not to judge but to reveal what's real. And in that moment, you begin to speak a new language, a language that doesn't come from doctrine, but from direct transmission of being. Have you noticed how your words hit differently when you're not trying to sound spiritual? That's the middle path speaking. Have you noticed how your presence shifts a room, even when you're silent? That's not charisma, that's field resonance. You don't need to explain what you are. You are it. This is what happens when you stop trying to purify yourself and start becoming fully available to the divine as you are. The middle path doesn't ask you to fix yourself. It asks you to become hospitable to your own contradictions, to make peace with the fact that you are the angel and the demon, the healer and the destroyer, the medicine and the poison. And that paradox doesn't weaken your power, it magnifies it. But here's the danger. The middle path has no map, no rules, no safety nets. That's why most people avoid it. Because there's nothing to lean on but your own soul. And if you're not deeply rooted in your essence, you'll try to recreate old systems just to feel safe again. You'll start copying others. You'll start imitating light or shadow teachings. You'll start identifying with labels again just to escape the holy terror of being undefinable. But I promise you this, if you can stay in the tension long enough, something miraculous happens. The fear dissolves, the identity collapses, and what remains is pure presence. A presence that doesn't need to teach because its very existence is a teaching. So let me ask you something. What part of you still wants a side to pick? What part of you still believes that being fully light or fully dark will make you feel safe, seen, or successful? Can you let that part grieve? Can you let it die? Because the moment you do, you'll hear something deeper rise. You'll hear the voice of your original soul. The one that was never meant to fit because it came to rebuild the spiritual architecture of this world. You are not here to teach what's already been taught. You are here to become the blueprint of what's next. And that blueprint can't be channeled until you stop filtering your power through old paradigms. Your power is not in your polarity. It's in your presence beyond polarity. That's the forbidden frequency, the one that scares both sides. Because it cannot be controlled. It cannot be categorized. It cannot be explained. It just is. And that's what makes it divine. That's what makes you divine, not your light, not your shadow, but your willingness to hold both without compromise. That is the rarest frequency on this planet. And when you embody it fully, you don't just awaken others, you collapse dimensional illusions around you. You are not stuck. You are suspended in sacred design. You are not torn, you are being braided into something multidimensional. The ache you feel is not confusion. It's the pressure of becoming original light in a polarized world. And when you finally embrace the middle path, not as a compromise, but as a revolution, you become the living synthesis world has been waiting for. There comes a moment in every dark chosen one's journey when they realize, I can never go back. Not to the light-only teachings, not to the shadow-only rituals, not to the illusion of duality that kept them safe when they were still fragile. And in that realization, something shatters, not just an identity, but a framework. The framework of good vs. bad, ascended vs. fallen, holy vs. profane. It breaks, and in its place rises something wordless, something vast, presence. You no longer operate from polarity. You operate from embodiment. You're no longer trying to heal your wounds, you are wielding the wisdom born from them. You're no longer trying to be seen, you are the signal. And that shift is terrifying. But it's also the only place where your true power can finally arise without distortion. To walk as a multidimensional being without losing yourself, you must become intimate with your essence. Not your personality, not your brand, not your spiritual role, your essence. That core frequency that existed before you had a name, before you had a past, before you had trauma to heal or power to reclaim. The world will try to pull you into identity again and again. Are you a light worker? A shadow priestess? A galactic shaman? A chaos magician? And unless you know your essence, you will answer with archetypes instead of authenticity. But when you know your essence, you don't need to explain. Your very presence pierces illusion. Your very stillness transmits alignment. You don't teach, you radiate. You don't defend, you resonate. And that resonance cannot be faked. because it's born from integration, not performance. But here's where it gets real. The more integrated you become, the more subtle the distortions become. You won't be tempted by obvious corruption. You'll be tempted by almost truths, opportunities that almost align, partnerships that almost feel clean, teachings that sound right but feel energetically off. And this is the final test of the dark chosen one, not the test of awakening, but the test of refinement. Can you stay so loyal to your essence that even the most seductive offers fall flat if they're not true? Can you say no to things that would make you rich, famous, respected because something in your soul whispers, this is not the path? That's what it means to walk in full power. Not to say yes to everything, but to say no with sacred clarity. And this is where you stop being a seeker and start being a mirror. People will come to you not for advice, but to feel their own truth reflected back to them. They will weep in your presence without knowing why. They will confess things to you they've never said out loud. Not because you ask, but because your field is so clean, so integrated, so paradoxically whole, that it creates a space where masks fall off. That's the living paradox. You're not trying to impress anyone. You're not trying to save anyone. You're not even trying to lead. But your very being leads the way. And here's the wild part: you'll still feel completely normal. You'll still feel human. You'll still doubt yourself sometimes. But the difference is, you won't believe the doubt anymore. You'll notice it. You'll smile at it. And then you'll keep walking. So what does it actually look like to live like this? It looks like choosing ritual over routine, silence over noise, depth over speed. It looks like trusting your body's yes and no more than your audience's reactions. It looks like letting go of timelines that no longer match your field, even if they seemed right just a week ago. It means living in real time with your soul, not on a schedule manufactured by fear. And above all, it means living without needing to be understood. Because when you are your full paradox, angel and demon, light and shadow, priest and rebel, most people won't know what to do with you. And that's okay, because you're not here to be decoded. You're here to disrupt the code itself. Let me ask you a question that could change everything. If you stopped trying to be consistent and started being congruent, what would you release today? What mask? What role? What version of yourself that once served you but now suffocates your soul? Can you let it die? Not because it was wrong, but because you've outgrown it. That's the paradox. The version of you that was needed at the beginning of your journey will become the very prison that keeps you from your next evolution. The dark chosen ones don't just evolve, they shed again and again, not to become better, but to become truer. And here's the most sacred truth I can offer you. You are already the integration you're seeking. You don't need to ascend higher. You don't need to descend deeper. You need to remember who you are in the space between. That's where your power is. That's where your voice is. That's where your freedom is. The demon doesn't need to be cast out, it needs to be understood. The angel doesn't need to be worshipped, it needs to be embodied. And you are the altar where they both kneel. You are the synthesis, the resolution, the frequency that breaks the binary and births the new world. So stop waiting to feel ready. Stop waiting for permission. Stop stop waiting for the light to be bright enough or the shadow to be soft enough. You are the bridge now. You are the one we've been waiting for, not because you're perfect, but because you're present, fully, fiercely, freely. You walk with the elegance of paradox and the humility of power. And when you walk like that, the world doesn't just change, it remembers what's possible.